What is going on, guys? Jesse here. So today I've got another desk setup for you guys, and the theme of this one was to really try and boil it down to the bare essentials and make it a place that I could really focus and just come and get work done. And while I don't think I can ever really call this a minimalist setup, because if it really were, I'd probably just have a laptop here and nothing else. But as far as my desk setups go, this is pretty minimalist, so that's what we're gonna call it. And since I'm primarily a Mac user, we're gonna call this the ultimate minimalist Mac setup for creators. So we're gonna start this off by talking about the desk itself. It's from a company called House Elf. They sent this over a couple of months ago, so sorry it took so long for me to get to this, but I think it's a really great standing desk if you want the standing desk functionality, but don't want the more traditional standing desk look. Most standing desks nowadays look pretty much identical with just the option to change what top you put on it and what color the legs are, and this one definitely has a little bit more personality. It's also made primarily from solid wood versus a veneer or laminate, which just gives it a much higher end look and feel. The only thing I will say about the desk though is that it does get a little bit wobbly once you get to standing height because the desktop is only attached to the frame by a single point. But I think for most situations it's more than enough. Now moving up on top of the desk, let's start this off by talking about what is more or less the centerpiece of this setup and really any setup, the monitor. This is the PD3220U from BenQ, and it is a 32-inch 4K monitor that's really geared towards creatives, but more specifically creatives that are also Mac users. Now you may look at this and ask yourself, why would you pick this up over any other 4K 32-inch monitor that you can find on Amazon for like $300? And the answer to that mostly has to do with color. On one hand, it's really nice to have good color just for general enjoyment, for playing games, watching movies and TV shows, and all that stuff really does benefit from having a really good color calibrated monitor. But it becomes much more important if you're a creative whose job involves making things look good. Like, let's say you buy a monitor that comes from the factory calibrated so that it is a little bit more saturated than it really should be, because most people just find that more enjoyable. If you then go edit a photo or video on that monitor so that the color looks correct on that monitor, it's gonna look a little bit less saturated than it should be on a more neutral monitor. But of course, if you knew this about your monitor, you could account for it by making all your photos a little bit less saturated on that monitor, but then at that point you're kind of playing a guessing game, and if your whole job revolves around you getting color correct, then you might as well invest into a more color accurate monitor. BenQ has been in the game of making designer monitors for a long time now, so you can really trust them when it comes to color, and each one of these comes factory calibrated to perfectly match your MacBook's color and has a lot of features built in so that you can always make sure that you're getting the best, most accurate colors possible. I'm not going to go into all the features in this video, but this monitor really does look great, and the quality of the panel along with the thin bezels and this puck that makes it so you can change the settings without having to reach behind makes this a really great option for anybody serious about creativity or their color. Now, along with the monitor, BenQ also makes one of my other favorite desk accessories of all time, and that's the screen bar halo. I won't go too in depth on this because I've talked about it so many times on the channel already, but I really like it because it gives your desk a really nice even layer of light without taking up any space on the desk surface itself. It just sits right on top of your monitor, and what I really like about the halo versus previous versions of the light bar is that the top is flat, so you can put a webcam on there with no problem. And as we all know, nowadays webcams are pretty much essential for everybody. And speaking of webcams, the one I've got here is the Opal C1, which I do have a video coming out pretty soon about it, so make sure you are subscribed so you don't miss it. But it is definitely the nicest webcam I've ever used. The video quality is awesome, which, you know, is important, but even more important, to me at least, is it's one of the best looking webcams that I've ever seen. And fun fact about it, it was actually designed by Kenny Sweet, who is the person responsible for the very first Beats by Dre headphones, which, as we all know, pretty much turned headphones into a fashion accessory. Opal as a company is also invested in by people like MKBHD and Casey PC Nyastat, and I gotta say, so far I've been really enjoying my experience with it, but definitely make sure you check out that full video once it comes out. Now, moving back behind the monitor, I think it's always really important to have some sort of backlighting to your monitor, because over time it does help reduce eye strain, and if you're going to be spending 8+ hours a day here, that's something you really should watch out for. The screen bar halo does have a little bit of backlighting on it, but personally it wasn't enough for me, so I added 2 Philips Hue play bars. And like a lot of other Philips Hue stuff, these are definitely on the pricier side, but I've tried some of the alternatives out there, and just in terms of light quality and ease of use, these are, in my opinion, worth the price. You just control them through the Philips Hue app. They're RGB, but I usually just keep them on white. Okay, and next up, let's talk about the Thunderbolt dock I'm using. This is the CalDigit TS4, and it basically just enables this whole setup to happen, but also happen very neatly. Basically, all the peripherals like the webcam and monitor plug right into the dock, and then I only need one cable from the dock to the laptop, which means every time I come and go from the setup, it's really easy. I just need to disconnect one cable. It's got all the ports I could ever really need except for maybe HDMI, but it does have DisplayPort, and it provides up to 98 watts of power for a laptop, which is awesome. Now, I know Thunderbolt docks are definitely not the most exciting things in the world, but for setups like this where you want to have a laptop docked in, they are extremely important, and this one from CalDigit is just one of the easiest ones I've ever used. And one thing especially that I really wanted to point out on this that is a little bit harder to find on other docks than you might think is that the headphone jack is on the back instead of the front, which just makes cable management so much easier. And I guess while we're on the topic of audio, the speaker I've got here is the Creative Sound Blaster Katana V2X. So having good sound is important to a good desk setup, and for this one it was a little bit tricky finding the perfect speaker, mostly because this desktop is a little bit smaller than I'm used to working with, and I had to find something that was very compact but still sounded good. So first of all, this being a sound bar means that I can fit it under the monitor, which already saves a lot of space, but it also comes with this compact subwoofer, which again does take up a little bit more space on the desk, but is more compact than a regular subwoofer would be. And sound-wise, I would say that it's not quite as good as a lot of studio monitors that you're gonna find in this price range, but I do think it is probably the best sounding soundbar that you're gonna find in this form factor. Okay, so just a couple of more things in the setup. We've got this vertical laptop dock from Human Centric. It's pretty affordable actually, which we always love to see, and the finish really matches the tabletop very well, and it's adjustable to fit pretty much any size laptop, so yeah, really like it. Next, for the mouse, I'm using the Logitech MX Master 3. I've also talked about this on the channel many times, but it's the best productivity mouse there is. That's all. For the keyboard, we've got the NuFi Air 60, which is, as the name suggests, a 60% keyboard, and I feel like the small footprint of the keyboard really fits the setup pretty well. It's also got low profile mechanical switches, so you kind of get the best of both worlds in the sense that you get the tactile feel of a mechanical keyboard, but also the low profile clean look of a chiclet style keyboard. And lastly, it's wireless, which is really important for my setup because I like to keep it clean. And next to it, I've got the Apple Magic Trackpad, and this is just totally unnecessary, but I kind of just like having the option to use it there. It provides a much better scrolling experience, and there are also just a couple of different gestures that I use on a day-to-day basis that there's not really a great keyboard equivalent to, or just a less satisfying version of it. And lastly, I need a place to charge my phone while I'm here, so we've got the Tesla wireless charger. It's got, in my opinion, pretty cool Cybertruck-esque aesthetics, but it's got really premium materials all around, like pretty much all metal construction, Alcantara where your phone rests so it doesn't get scratched, and it can charge up to 3 devices at a time, and you don't have to worry about lining up the coils with the charging pad because you can just place your device anywhere on here and it'll start charging. My biggest complaint with it though is that the power cable for it is built in, so if it starts fraying or gets damaged in any way, you're pretty much just SOL. Overall, I think it was maybe a little bit too expensive for what it is, but I think it's pretty cool. But yeah, that's the setup. It's definitely a little bit simpler than what I usually have. And for those of you wondering, this is not going to replace the main setup, but just offer me a different place for when I want kind of a different vibe. And like I said at the beginning, a more focused setup that is more free from distractions that I can just, focus on getting work done. I hope you guys enjoyed it and found some inspiration for your own setups at home. If you guys end up picking anything up from the video because of me, then yeah, definitely make sure you let me know in the comment section down below, because I read all the comments and I always really like to see those. But yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.